Good evening, everyone. I am, for the very first time, broadcasting live on location in Galveston, Texas. And as I typed, I'm here to present workshops at a conference for Texas school counselors. Of course, the nicest people in the world are school counselors. So it's very special. And tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So I wanted to be able to broadcast tonight because you'd better be doing something special with your sweetie tomorrow on Valentine's Day if you have one. And if you don't have a beloved, then I hope you're doing something special to make yourself feel cared for, connected, and loved. Anyway, thank you for tuning in tonight. Um, it's a different one. Think about Valentine's Day as a time when we express our love, not in general, but to the beloved. And for my intention, my life, it's never been more important that I pay attention to that, that I use whatever artfulness I know to say I love you to Jack. And so, of course, before I left home yesterday, seems like it was a longer time ago than yesterday, I made sure that I hid a Valentine somewhere. Actually, I hid two Valentines, and he found one before I left. But one of them he didn't find until after I left. So my tradition for him, because I know his number one love language is words. My tradition for him is to express my love in words. So I would want you to know the number 1 and 2 love languages for the one you love. And so as I wrote the 5 down, now the 5 are originally from Gary Chapman, and I've thanked him in my mind so many times for his work because it helps me with the couples it always helps to help people think about we need to do the loving thing, and that's the simplest, most basic, most important thing ever, is to make the one we love feel loved. If we do that, then it's about anything else. And if we have conflict, we're going to do it in a spirit of goodwill and not in a spirit of meanness. So Gary's love languages are affectionate words or words of affection, quality time spent together, when I say tasks, he calls it acts of service, things that you do for the other person that are nice, quality time spent together, and gifts. And so I've found that they neatly fit into the T section, which is talk, touch, time, tasks, and tokens. Because as you know, sometimes it's difficult to give or to receive gifts. And we want the gift to be a token of our care, a gift, a token of our love. So if any of you have any questions or any thoughts, I would love for you to sign in and chat with me tonight. That always makes it more fun for me because I can't anticipate what you're thinking and what you need, and that's what I'm here for. So the 5 love languages, what you want to know, they're all meaningful, but usually there are 2 that are more meaningful than others. Only once have I had somebody where this guy, he absolutely insisted. He said, well, there are 3 of them that get a 2, and there are 3 of them that get a 3. And he wasn't going to move off that. So, okay. Then his wife needed to know what were the 3 that he gave a 2 to. Because those were all the things that made him feel loved. And so let's just look at those 5 love languages. So talk, which is words, and sometimes it's not talking out loud. Sometimes it's written, or sometimes it's left on a voicemail. but it's expressed in words. And I know that there are some people where if the love is expressed in words, they think, well, it's easy to say words, and words don't really mean anything to me. So in that case, we want to look at what that person's number one love language is. But words, one of the things that I remind us of is it's always special to have endearments, special words that you use, or names that you use, or compliments that you use that you wouldn't say to anybody else, so that it's just a specific thing for the person that you love. And I know in the beginning, when if you use those words, some people feel a little embarrassed about them. But when you get if your spouse, your beloved, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner really responds highly to words, you want to know which ones are meaningful to them. And then, bottom line, this is what I say: know your man, know your woman. Whether it's a man or a woman, you want to know what it is that they like. Because if you found the one, it really doesn't matter what anybody else likes. That's the one you want to love. That's the one you want to be masterful at in terms of having an intimate relationship. So I'm lucky in that I'm a word person, and therefore it's, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, a talker, so that if Jack's number one love language is words, that's something I don't have to work at. Now, if your lover's number one love language is words or talk, and you're a person of few words and a person who's not really skilled at or easy with saying intimate things, then it's going to be hard for you, and you are going to have to work at it. And of course, your loved one is going to understand that, which means if you go the extra mile with your words, just stretch out a little bit more than you ordinarily would, they will notice. And hopefully, they will say thank you to you. Because if we get the love that we need in the way that feels best to us, we want to definitely make sure the other person knows that they did good. Oftentimes, any of you who have been to see me in my private practice, I will just do this little check-in. One of the persons will do something that I think is probably a good thing, or say something that's loving or caring. And then I'll ask the other person, I'll say, when that person said that, 0 to 10, how good was it? And I have a sense, well, maybe that was that was a 10. Wow. And then I look at the other person, did you know that you got a 10 for doing that? And oftentimes they won't. Isn't and a couple who's been married for a long period of time. So isn't that interesting? That you deliver and you mean it genuinely and you do your best, but the other person's response is, thank you so much, that was great. But you don't know when. It may have sounded by the tone of their voice or what they said, and maybe it's because it's hard for them to accept it or let it in. You feel like maybe you got a 5 or 6. Pay attention, be sensitive, that when you do something that you really want to get through, check it out. It's, sometimes it feels like you're putting them on the spot, but when you say 0 to 10, how good did I do? It's because you want to know, am I coming through? And if I only got a 5 or 6, well, then what do I do to get a 10? Because I really want you to feel that much love. So that's about words or talking. And as you know, when we communicate, oftentimes the larger part of talking is listening. So sometimes the words or the talk has to do with questioning or eliciting and asking, saying, I would like to know what you think about that, or what would you like here? And if the other person says, well, I don't know, and then you say, well, I know you like this and this. Does it go along that way? Which means you help them, you companion them, and help, because some people have a hard time putting things into words. So don't just take I don't know for an answer. Wait and see if you can, in a loving and gentle way, get more information, showing the other person that you really want to know, and it's because you love them. So that's a bit about words and talking. Now, the next love language, touch. Again, there are some people that are very touchy-feely, and that's the way they grew up. Their family was huggy and expressive and outgoing and affectionate and very, very naturally kind of affectionate with touching each other. You know, not that it was romantic, but that it was caring touches. Other families don't ever touch each other at all, and it feels almost disrespectful to enter someone else's space and touch them. So that's a hard thing. If you are one of those people who grew up either with a lot of touch or without any touching or very little, and then you get together with somebody who their number one love language is touch, that means that in order to make them feel loved, they need to be touched. And if that's not just kind of second nature for you, that means that you're probably going to have to think about it and work at it. And the best thing, of course, is if your loved one puts touch at the top of his or her list, you ask them, which kinds of touch do they love most? Which kinds do they crave most from you? And sometimes they just want you to hold their hand. And if some people are not comfortable holding their hand in public, then I would say that's something that you need to risk and go ahead and figure out how to do it, excuse me, the first time. Because after you've done it about 3 times, the intensity of your discomfort is going to be greatly lowered. So pay attention to what the other person says and not to your own sense of reticence or fear or shyness. Loving another person is way more important than our own shyness or kind of fear of taking a risk. We want you to take as many risks as you possibly can when you want to love the other person. So, and of course, touch sometimes is sexual touch. Sometimes it's not sexual touch. And you want to know that about your beloved. What kinds of touch feel loving? What kinds of touch in a sexual way do they love? And what kinds bother them or irritate them? Because you definitely don't want to do things to irritate the one that you love most, the one that you want to be closest to, and the one whom you want to be most intimate with. So take it seriously. I remember working with a couple where they really honestly were well married, and they were growing, they had kids, and they'd been with each other for quite a long time, and she complained about how he touched her. It was still kind of frankly like how a guy in a locker room, or a frat guy, kind of like, goose her or kind of do a little sexual squeeze. Being playful is what he was doing, and he was just playing with her. But her need with him to be touched was for him to get more tender, more sensitive, more serious. And to tell the truth, he was a little uncomfortable doing that. It was much easier to do the casual touching than the sincere, tender touching. And she went to great lengths repeatedly to remind him that that didn't feel good to her. And it was hard for him to change that. Of course, he did. They're still married, and it's been a while. And they found their stride again with that. But that meant growing, meant maturing. And sometimes it's hard for us when we haven't cultivated that sense of intimacy. And sometimes people, they use laughter to kind of diffuse the intensity. Sometimes they do that in my office, and then I ask them not to laugh because, unless we're playing with each other. But if there's a really sensitive moment, something where they really open up and the other person can't take it and they laugh, or they some way or another want to diffuse the tension or the intensity, that's avoiding intimacy. That's avoiding really connecting with your loved one. So you want to make sure that you hold it. You're strong enough. If you love somebody, you're strong enough to hold it. Not all the time, of course, but when it's a sincere when it's a sincere moment, you don't want to joke around. It's not respectful and not kind. Um, and also, of course, sexual touch. We want to know what kind of touch when we're being sexual, when we're making love. We want to know what our partner's love map is, or their arousal map, what kind of touch, what makes them really feel sexy in a really happy, good way, and what it is that's not their preference. You want to know your man, and you want to know your woman, and you want to share the best kind of love making that you can, given that we're all just human, and sometimes we're better and sometimes we're, yeah, not quite there, and that's okay. Uh, our sexual appetites and our sexual play together, it is multi-dimension, just like having a meal. Sometimes, just recently we had a dinner party, and I forgot to take the potatoes out of the oven soon enough, and they were, if not crisp, they were a little burned, and I was just like, oh, nobody complained, but it wasn't my best endeavor, right? Same thing with how we treat each other with our love languages and how you are with your sex life together. So we want you to be pay attention to that sincerely and with the best you got. Then, of course, we've got quality time spent together. And this is hard when you've got jobs, when maybe you travel, or you've got kids, and lots of active kids, or family members, or friends, whatever it is, hobbies, sports, and you've got your day and your time extraordinarily filled, which is good, right? And yet sometimes what can happen, and I've seen this in couples that have come to see me in various ways over the years, where they have, not that they planned it this way, but they have become co-parents. And because they love their kids, they love being parents, and they have a lot of fun with their kids. They do it really well. And yet, little by little by little, the parenting edges out the romantic time or the quality time spent together as a couple. Somehow or another, it gets put on the back burner sometimes. So you want to make sure that you notice if your quality time spent together, especially if you or your beloved, that's one of your top two love languages, your quality time, your relationship and your intimacy and your connection is going to kind of sink a little bit if you don't have time periodically together. And what that time is, how you do it, what's quality to you probably will shift and evolve over the years together. And really have a conversation about it every once in a while. Just say, are we spending the quality time together that you like? Or are you kind of feeling like we're not connecting as well as we need to? Have a conversation about that. Sometimes, when it's quiet, you're going to sleep, or you're having coffee or something like that. Pay attention. Pay attention to each other and what you need. Incidentally, if any of you have a question or a concern, doesn't have to be on the topic tonight, chime in and chat with me. I'm happy. I love it when anybody engages me live like this. And isn't this fun? Me in my hotel room here in Galveston, Texas, on location broadcasting. I love my laptop, and isn't it a powerful tool? So, somebody chimed in. Thank you. The way I feel loved is if someone listens to me, really focus and take in what I have to say. Is that talk language or is it time language? Well, the truth is it may be both. But I would say that it's talk. And when I teach couples communication, I'm kind of insufferable on the very first lesson. I have 4 modules, and the first one is a lengthy self-scored quiz on how good are you as a listener. And what you're describing, dear, is you need somebody to really, at a deep and intimate level, be a good listener. The truth is, that's in the big scheme of things, it may not be everybody's number one love language, but, and yet, it's critically important. When I talk about my favorite definition of love, I refer to Scott Peck in his classic book, The Road Less Traveled. And he spends chapters sincerely defining love in all different kinds of dimensions. He was a devoted man, a spiritual man, a psychologist and a psychiatrist of great intellect. And this was obviously a work of love for him. And, if I have to distill it down to just one piece, what it was that he said defined love and doing the loving thing, it was work. You know how the French word for work is travail, and travail means, work, travail. And work, the work of love is paying attention, paying full attention. So that is talk, but the better part of the talk is listening, right? So paying attention. And paying attention in the way of real love, all that you have to the other person. And when we think about what is it, the one thing, the most precious thing in life, the most irreplaceable commodity any human being has, it's time. And if you give the highest quality of time to another person, it would be paying full attention, giving all that you have to paying attention and to putting everything that you think, you need, you feel aside, and using all of your sensibilities, all of your sensitivity, all of your intelligence to really take in, to want to know, to listen, to question, to be curious, to be kind. So that kind of paying attention is the most, if not respectful, kind and adoring thing I think any of us can do. It requires that we give over all of ourselves to sensing another human being. Will you be my Valentine, Heather? Also, not to leave out Jack, he can be my other Valentine. Thank you. I'm your Valentine right now, that's for sure. He actually is doing a talk for a college class tonight, helping them think about getting a living from the education that they're receiving. And it's a whole classroom full of grad students who are studying counseling like I did. So he's out there loving on people just the way I am tonight, in my way too. So what you said, the way you feel loved is if someone listens to you, really focus and take in what I have to say. So that's one part of it, what I just described of paying full attention. Scott Peck's great definition of love. He also said that it requires two things, great self-discipline and great courage, and that it is an act that supports another person's spiritual growth. Isn't that big? So paying attention requires self-discipline in the sense that we hold back our intention, our need, our opinion in order to make space and welcome another person's intention, opinion, ideas, and then the courage to really hold it and to listen to that. Also, it takes courage to let their love in, doesn't it? So there's another part of this, what you described, dear, as feeling loved when somebody really listens to you. Is pretty much the number one way every woman needs a man or her beloved to pay attention to her and to love her. And that we call kind of like, I want to feel like you understand me. And if I am to convey myself so that you understand me, usually that means I need to express myself, and then you understand what it is that I think, feel, desire, worry about, fret over. Most women want to be understood and to be therefore not only listened to but validated, which means in essence your partner saying, is this true? Is this what you're thinking? Is this what you're feeling? Is this what I understand is important to you? So they check it out, and then they say, so you like this, or you want this, or you don't like this, or this is your dream, or this is what bugs you. That's the validation. So that's high level communication between a couple who loves each other. Now, does that speak to your description of what makes you feel loved? The definition of love, where we pay full attention, where we are courageous and self-disciplined, and also that a woman needs to feel understood and validated. Okay, let's see what he says. I agree, paying attention is highly generous. Perhaps for that reason it is rare, and I seldom find it and seldom feel very loved. Most people talk nonstop about themselves. I end up listening. Yes, absolutely. And that's partly because there are many of us who never really got taught. I mean, that's why I give classes in it. Nobody taught me how to listen or what I needed to ask for in order to feel understood and validated. And so I teach that to couples all the time because it's not understood, it's not taught, and very seldom do people pay any attention to that there's a need there. Sometimes in the business world, people are taught about listening, but not quite to the level that I like to teach it and the importance that I give it. It's interesting to me. I will be teaching communication in a corporate setting. And what I've experienced is I will ask for a show of hands. How many of you have ever really felt like somebody listened to you completely? Really stopped everything and just listened, just paid full attention. And the typical response to that will be, out of a room, say, of 25, 30 people, there will be 3 people who raise their hand. And I want them to see that. I want them to see how rare it is, to notice how important, so that they begin to school themselves to be better listeners. So let's see. For me, in our busy lives, it's a challenge to get that quality time connection. Absolutely. For me, when we meet up after our busy days, it's all about listening to each other, even for 5 minutes. Ah, you're doing it then. And isn't it true? If it's just 5 minutes, if it's only 1 or 2 minutes, if it's really listening, if it's really paying attention, it's enough, and it makes you feel great. So listening, you're right. Listening, good listeners are not common. And some people, listeners, they're just quiet. But I find that I don't spend much time around those people. It's like I don't have time. I want to have a real relationship with the friends that I have. And that means that both of us talk and both of us listen. And it needs to be pretty much even Steven, 50-50. If it's a beloved, if it's a friend, both people need to be heard and seen and known. And both people need to express themselves. So when you find those people, you probably don't spend much time with them. And I would recommend that you not do that. Sometimes we have sympathy for people rather than empathy. Sometimes we tolerate people because we think we ought to. Sometimes it's a friendship that we've had for forever and we're loyal. And yet, I ask us to consider spending our time in the most respectful way possible, not only for others, but for ourselves. And if you've found that some of the friends in your life, there's not that connection or that simpatico that there used to be, that you've grown and you've been learning, you've been evolving, you're more sensitive in certain areas, you have new interests, it's okay. Even though sometimes it's very hard, it's hard not to feel guilty or disloyal or something, to decide to spend more time with new friends who actually connect with you at a deeper level. New friends who actually listen to you and want to know you. And then what that does is it displaces the time that you used to spend with somebody who no longer can walk beside you with that kind of reciprocity. Okay, let's see here. After 5 minutes, we digress to the day-to-day stuff. Yeah. However, we challenge ourselves to exchange what is really going on. You guys are obviously in what I call an intentional relationship. And sometimes, if you've been together for a long time, the intentional things have been shared, and sometimes they get shared not very often, and yet there is that connection that's almost symbiotic. And I know Jack and I will go along and we won't talk about anything meaningful internally, really, other than we're talking about how we're being creative, what we're inventing, and how to help each other with that. And there's no sense of lack of deep connection because we're both so passionate about what we're doing. And then if there's a point where something profound or sensitive comes, then we'll have that, as you say, what's really going on. Thank you so much for sharing that. Obviously, your relationship is extraordinary. You've taken it to a level of genuine intimacy. And I bet people love being around you because people can feel that. Um, let's see what else this person is saying. Um, the other person says, the other thing that happens when I share is people offer me advice in yes, instead of listening. Advising isn't listening. No, it isn't, is it? I am trying to find a way to ask the advisors to listen instead. Well, if this person has a really important relationship with you, you might be able to make some headway with that. And you might not. It depends on the person. It depends on how flexible they are, how mature they are, um, how important your relationship is. Because it's hard to ask somebody um, to stop giving advice when that's just their natural way of interacting. So I wish you luck on that. And I would recommend that you use cushion statements to get it across. And it might work. And it might not. It's just like we can't predict what someone is able or willing to do. Let's see, another person says, we intend, we intend, we have that moment. Then we move on to the day to day. Sometimes I want it to go farther. Yes, and if you do, express that. And express it always with a yes. You know, when I'm thinking about communication, I'm going to type this. Start with, whoops, I've got all my caps going here. With yes. Start with yes. And so when you get that moment of intention and it feels so good and that's what you want more of, then give the yes. Say, what did I do here? I did something. Ha! Okay. I lost my screen. Say something that conveys to the other person, because obviously you're giving it out of that's a 10. And say something to your beloved that says, you know, what we just talked about, I can't tell you how meaningful that is to me. If I were to say 0 to 10, how important that is to me, that was a 10, or lover, or honey. And I don't get that from anywhere else. I only get it from you, and I only want it from you. So I want more. Whatever you're comfortable giving is cool. But that was fabulous. It makes me feel so loved. So I gave you a whole lot of cushion statements there, right? Cushion statements set up what you're communicating with sincerity, with honesty, with a pointed message that says, I love you, this is meaningful, I want more of this, and I want to make sure that you know how this is affecting me. So always a yes. And rather than saying, well, you know, that was really nice, but it wasn't enough. Always a yes, saying that was fabulous. And I want to let you know how wonderful it was. And maybe it was only 3 sentences, but that's something, and that's something. I'll think to myself, you know, over tomorrow and other days. So I need you to know that what you did gets 5 stars. So it's really important when you get that to make sure that you put the stamp of I love you on it. I love what the other person said about advising isn't listening. And it's sad, isn't it? It's sad when people get into that habit. And sometimes you'll find somebody who is like complaining about something or whining about something, and then somebody will offer advice, and they'll have a yabbit for everything so that they don't really want to fix any problem, or they don't want to progress because they're going to rationalize everything away. And then there's what you're describing, where you want to be heard. You just want to express something and be understood. Now, this sometimes, happens with men and women, where a woman wants him to understand her. She wants him to listen. She wants validation. She wants to know that she's important to him. And he will give her advice. This is not uncommon, and it's a natural thing, and it's at the foundation a healthy thing. Because if you think about our men, all of our good men, and this is an astonishing thing about men that has my reverence and admiration. They really do naturally and willingly say, I'm going to be the provider and protector. That's who I am, and that's what I make the commitment to do. And so I'm providing and protecting you. I want to make sure that you're good. And I want to make sure that you're happy, because if you're happy, then I get the feedback. I know that I'm a good provider, protector, and then I can say, good, good. And some women don't know this, that when you're unhappy, your man is going to make, consciously or unconsciously, the assumption that he's not doing good enough. He's not providing and protecting well enough. He's not the kind of man that you want to love. So this was one of the other points that I want to make tonight, that for women, we want guys to do nice things for us. But for men, and if you read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, it's right there, black and white, and it's beautifully done. The ways to make points with a man, the ways to make points with a woman. The ways to make points with a man are, in essence, if I were to say it in shorthand, not to have an attitude, not to be emotionally dramatic or upset, because there's and this, it can be much more complex than this, of course, but when a woman is not happy, when she has an attitude or she's upset, it makes him feel like maybe he's not good enough as a husband, and so he needs to fix it. So notice I use the phrase fix it. And sometimes that's what happens when you want to communicate something and a man wants to give you advice, because he wants to fix it, because he's coming from that place of, I want to make sure you're happy, then I know I've done a good job. So what you want to do is, if he's trying to fix it, in a loving and gentle way, just say, sweetie, I don't, right now, all I need from you, like, you don't want to say, stop listening, or stop giving advice. You want to say, you know what, all I need from you right now is I need to just say what I'm thinking, and I need you to understand me and kind of listen to me. And if you tell me what to do, or give me advice or whatever, it feels like you're trying to fix me, and I don't respond well to that. I just need you to understand me. And he'll say, really? That's all you want? Yeah, it is. And I'm a gal, and that's what women need. So that's another piece about where advice comes from. Okay, I got another text here. I work a day job. She works a nighttime retail gig. So it is so intense when we see each other. I want it to last longer. I have to check myself, being needy, i.e. insecure. But reality sets in, and I realize she is so very tired. Maybe all I can do is rub her feet, and I will practice that acceptance thing. Isn't that lovely to hear a guy say something like that? Or a lady, you may be a woman, but probably you're a guy. So if you have that craving, if you need, it sounds to me like one of your top love languages is quality time, then that means maybe you can't get it on a day-to-day, week-to-week level. And that's just how your life is right now. That means that in order to get what you need, you want to be able to look forward to it. And that means planning something so that you know that you're going to get a nice big chunk of time. Maybe it's not even every weekend, or maybe it's just you get noon or something. But there is research shows when we can look forward to something, when it's planned and we know when it's going to happen, our enjoyment of it starts when we know the plan. And that means, yes, you know that you're going to get a Sunday afternoon and you're going to have really full time to be together. And that looking forward to that Sunday afternoon goes a long way during the week when you feel like you just don't get enough time. And yeah, you don't want to be needy, except for it's really a good thing to want to love somebody and to want to have an intimate relationship with them. So it's hard. It really is hard, and it takes time and attention. I'm wondering also, you saying that you work a day job and she works nighttime retail. If there are other, we typically think of having our personal time in the evening. Are there other things that you two can kind of just sneak in there? Like going out for breakfast at a really nice place where maybe you're crossing paths and you don't get to spend a lot of time, but that you get it where you can put it. Or maybe a lunchtime, or maybe going home for lunch or for breakfast or something, or maybe just doing it every once in a while. So that see where you can plan it. Because obviously with jobs like that, it's not going to just happen. And then when you plan it, somehow or another, that kind of paying attention to make the plan gives it more oomph, if you know what I mean, more specialness. And especially if you're doing something that nobody else does, it's something special about you. And that brings me to a part about Valentine's Day. You want to know what's special for the two of you. And as I was talking to a lady where they were selling flowers today, and she said, honestly, I really, if he's going to spend $100 on roses, and you don't have to, of course. I was in a place where they were like $17 for a dozen, so you don't have to spend $100. But she said, if he's going to spend $100 on roses, I'd rather have the money. And so whoever loves her needs to know that, and that maybe she gets a gift card or a gift certificate where it's not that he gives her cash, but that he goes and finds a place where he knows she likes to shop, and he gives her a cash card for that place and then puts it in a Valentine's Day card. That woman would be so thrilled to have that rather than a dozen roses. So whatever it is that you do on Valentine's Day, you want to do it a little bit more, or a little bit more focused, or a little bit more special. It's, what they say, it's the thought that counts. Well, all of the love languages talk about we have thought about the other person and we figured out some way that we want to express our love. So we were talking about time, right? Then the next one is tasks. And classically that's called acts of service. Acts of service kind of doesn't sound quite like a fun thing. But there are people who feel so cared for, so tenderly loved, when their beloved will do um, special things for them. You know, sometimes if he takes your car and puts gas in it or gets the oil changed, it's better for you than getting roses or a greeting card or spending time or touch. It makes you feel more cared for, more tenderly loved, and you want to be more responsive when he's going to do something like that for you. Or the same thing. I remember a guy where she loved cooking and she made meals, and yet it never ever got old for him because it was his top love language. That her act of service was meal preparation for him, and every day, every time she did it, it made him feel tenderly cared for and loved. And isn't that the way I think about it? And with love is it's infinite. And like the idea of kisses, they are um, they are gone in a heartbeat. So kisses are infinite. They are consumables that are gone. And then there's always more. Because, well, I got kissed an hour ago, but what about now? Or we kissed each other yesterday, but what about now? Because kisses are in the moment. It's today. And like a gentleman said in my class today, and there were tears in his eyes, saying, you know, we could die today. Let's give it everything we've got. And so if I haven't had a kiss today, it's what about now? Let's see, someone else typed. I find that most people, male and female, become fixers when I express emotion. Yes, that's not uncommon. I think our culture is uncomfortable with emotion, and people fix to lower their level of discomfort. And then the other person says, I don't want to fix. Acceptance is the answer. Accept that they fix. That's where they are. Well, yes and no. I agree with you and I disagree with you. Today, when the gentleman in my class moved to tears, four dynamic responses in my classroom. First of all, everybody was quiet because they knew this was a tender, intimate moment. And of course, for someone to be that vulnerable and open-hearted in a workshop I present is the highest honor that I could imagine. And so I'm very comfortable with emotions. I mean, I'm a professional, and emotions are fabulous. And there are also people, and a lot of people in our culture today, who really don't understand emotional intelligence, don't even know what it is, and they're very uncomfortable with it. And so they can't take it. They have to do something. They have to stop it or fix it, or in some way take care of the people and stop their bad feelings because they don't want them to feel bad. And so there were two people in the room who did things like that, even though this was a room of counselors. One woman got up and she left the room, and she came back with 2 glasses of water, which was lovely. She brought a glass of water for me and for the gentleman, which is very considerate. And then another person went and got Kleenexes and put them in his hand. And those were fine. If I thought it was inappropriate or disrespectful, I wouldn't have, I would have interrupted that. But what I did and what I was doing was the utmost of respect. I went closer to him, and I stood very quietly, and sometimes I just was looking down because I wasn't about to disturb the bigness that was going on inside of him. and I was holding the space for him. Now, I'm the same way as you. When I am moved to tears, I don't want somebody interrupting me because I'm in the midst of something that's very passionate. It's like if I'm at the symphony and I'm weeping because of the profound moment there, I don't want somebody to reach over and say, "Are you okay? You're getting in my space. You're disrupting me." And they don't know any better. So we want to love them as they are, and we want to show them that, what it is that we need. And so I'll say, I'm okay, just um, I need, I need to be inside myself. Or that's okay, I just want to be private right now. Or thank you, don't disturb me. Whatever it is, I will draw the boundary for them because what I'm experiencing is my priority, and I will do it like a lady, but I will very clearly draw the boundary for them so that they know that they've done what they need to do and that they can, um, in essence, back off. Um, so this person says it's all about being in the moment, in real time. Fixers have an agenda, not in the moment. No. Careful, dear, you're giving advice, and this is my show. And you're sometimes right, and that's not correct sometimes. Then again, I blow off fixer comments as not in the moment, my agenda. Well, fixers may be very much in the moment. Like the lady was today who went out and brought glasses of water into the room. She was doing something, and when she gave him the glass of water, and she gave me the glass of water, it was the right thing. It, in essence, helped him pull back into where he needed to be in a setting where he wasn't alone and private. And it was just the right gesture, and she did it at just the right time. So she wasn't fixing him. She was doing, she was, she was giving him, it was an act of love from her. She was doing the loving thing. And if it hadn't been appropriate for him, he could have just not taken it or taken it and put it aside. So she was very much in the moment and very much empathetic and tender with him. So be careful. If you're going to make a blanket assumption, a lot of the time it may be true for some people, and it's probably not for some others. So let's see here. I think a lot of my problems come from my childhood. Yes, and that's true, and it's natural for all of us. That's when we get our lessons delivered. However, I am learning to make time for the one that I love and try to be more loving. And I bet the one that you love notices it and appreciates it. And then it's your own gift. Because when we go into doing something out of an act of love that's new or different or a little uncomfortable, what happens is we also experience ourselves as doing the loving thing, as being a loving person, which then gives us more courage or more attention to doing it again, especially if the person responds well. And then the last love language. Let's see, I want to see if I covered all the things that I wanted to say. Yeah, is tokens or gifts. And some people say, well, I don't need gifts. And yet, when the gift is given because it's a thoughtful thing, it can't help but make a difference. It may not be as important to people as time or affectionate touch or loving words, but tokens of our love that we think about, that really relate to the other person, not like you're getting just it's Christmas and you get a new sweater, but that it's a gift, and sometimes it's the way the gift is wrapped or packaged or presented, where it says, I was thinking of you and I wanted to give this to you. And to add on to that one, I want to remind us that some people just love surprises. Some people are horrified by surprises. And then there are those people in the middle where they like surprises, or it's like it's fine. So if you have a beloved who doesn't like surprises, even though you do, I want you to be careful of that. I want you to take it to heart. There are some people that really and truly do not like surprises. It feels like to them that they're being blindsided. Or maybe they've had so many things from as you said, from their childhood, or so many people have given them gifts or something that just they didn't relate to, or it wasn't their style, so it felt thoughtless. That comes under that study, that anticipation is part of the pleasure of whatever it is that we like. So if your beloved doesn't like surprises, please listen. Please take it seriously. Do not give them a surprise party. And if you're going to give them chocolate, say, I've got an idea of a little gift that I want to give you. And Jack does this to me. He says, do you want the surprise or do you want the anticipation? And sometimes I'll say, I want the surprise. Sometimes I'll say, no, I want to know what you're going to do. I want to look forward to it. And I want to know how high heels I need to wear and what kind of dress I need to wear, or attire, whatever it is. Let's see. But it's hard, a comment. I'm learning to make time for the one that I love and try to be more loving, but it's hard sometimes. I do struggle with showing affection. Yes. And every time you struggle, you've done the loving thing, right? Remember the Scott Peck quote, which is, it takes courage and it takes self-discipline. And what you described is exactly the love of paying attention, the work of love. Because if it's hard for you, that means you're using your own self-discipline and you're using your courage. Maybe not huge courage, but more courage than ordinarily you would think. To go the extra mile or the extra 5 minutes and do that thing that you know is loving. So you struggle with it and yet you do it. You are a fabulous listener, Heather. Thank you so much. I obviously take it to heart. And sometimes I'm really a fabulous listener and sometimes I'm not. And with Jack, of course, he's the hardest one for me, and our beloved is for all of us. Sometimes I'll get in there and I'll be so excited about what he's saying and I'll want to go fast, and I will make the mistake of finishing his sentences. And then it won't be what he wanted to say, and then it makes him feel discounted by me because I interrupted him and I didn't really hear what he wanted to say. So yes, sometimes I'm a great listener, and yet I'm just as human as anybody else. And my sweetie sometimes has to remind me not to finish his sentences and to just express himself. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. And thank you, dear hearts, for the chat and for the questions and for your genuine and sincere investment in tuning into my broadcast and having this dialogue with me. Whoever you are, because I